Hello, my name is Jay Damle, and I'm the author of the book on schedule delays, why do they happen, and how to avoid them. The book is available on Amazon. I also have a website, www.bookonsscheduledelays.com. Please visit the website as there are a few free bonuses available for you when you visit the site. In this video, we will tackle another very important topic, and that of schedule uncertainty, schedule risk, and schedule contingency. We encounter uncertainties in life every day. Take a simple case of you driving to work, which is about, let's say, 20 miles away from your home. If somebody asks you, how long does it take you to drive to work? You may say, oh, about 30 minutes on the average. Someday, when the traffic is bad and you get more red lights, it could be up to 40 minutes. And on some days, when everything goes in your favor, it could be only 25 minutes. I have just given you an example of uncertainty that you face in everyday life. On some other day, it is raining very hard and the traffic is jammed because of an accident along the way. It therefore takes you an hour and a half to reach your office on that day. That is an example of a risk that you face over which you have no control and you don't know on what day it is going to happen. So, if you are facing these uncertainties and risks in daily life, what about their impact on your schedules and project schedule, which may be 2 or 3 years or even longer in duration? The answer to the above question is, of course, yes. And for that reason, you must address the impact of uncertainties and risks on your project schedule. So far, we have only talked about a logic, duration, and resource-driven schedule where every single activity has a defined or a deterministic duration. And therefore, the schedule you have developed is what is commonly known as a deterministic schedule. However, most likely, most of the activities' actual durations when they are completed will be different. Some will be shorter and some will be longer. In such a scenario, we are hoping that everything will work out in the end and you will finish your project on schedule. However, hopes alone will not convince your senior company or client management that the project will be completed by the contractual date. To convince that, you will have to develop a probabilistic schedule where while developing such a schedule, you will have to talk to a subject matter expert or SME or SMEs, several of them, for each of the disciplines that your project covers and get their expert opinion on what is the optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic duration for each activity which they may have experienced on other projects earlier that they worked on. Compile all of that information and then feed that information to a special computer software such as Portmaster, for example. Then run the program to find out the probability that the project will be completed on time. Again, please visit my website for a copy of the book which details these concepts. In the previous slide, we addressed impact on schedule activities due to uncertainties. What about schedule risks? Tackling schedule risks. Addressing risk is a much more involved process and does require planning in advance. The exercise really begins with establishing an official risk register on the project. Populating this risk register with potential risk requires a wider participation with the project, senior company, and client personnel. The next step requires mapping of these risks to the applicable project activities and then determining the probability and severity of the risk which will impact the affected activity's duration. Typically, risk management process will go through these 3 steps: risk identification, risk quantification, and risk mitigation. Please go to my website to get to the very interesting discussion on the subject matter that I present in the book. In the book, I also give you an example of a simple 6-activity network subjected to a scheduled duration uncertainty affecting the 6-activity is project end date. The next topic is of schedule contingency. To address the impacts due to schedule uncertainty and schedule risk, you must make a provision in the schedule to add schedule contingency. It is not unusual to add about 10% of the overall project duration to the contractual schedule. For a 2-year or a 24-month schedule, your contingency could be about 2 months. How would you show that contingency on the schedule? There are 2 schools of thought here. One suggests showing that separately as the last activity on the schedule. However, here you face the danger of your client asking to take it out of the schedule. The other option is to blend contingency into activities which are most likely to get impacted. Carry out internal discussions on your project with the project and senior company management to decide on a specific course of action. In the last few chapters, we discussed about building a baseline schedule, validating the schedules, claims, contingency, etc. That brings us to the next very important topic of schedule maintenance, which we will cover in the next chapter. Please do visit my website at www.bookonsscheduledelays.com. If you do want to get in touch with me, please send me an email at vadamle01@gmail.com. Thank you.